At 30,000 feet above the Midwest, a woman worth $3 billion stopped breathing. 53 passengers watched her die. Some gasped. Some froze. One man in business class pulled out his iPhone and started filming, already composing the caption for his social media post. But in seat 37B, crammed between a broken lavatory door and a screaming infant, a man in duct-taped shoes stood up. His hands were cracked from scrubbing corporate toilets at midnight. His 8-year-old daughter clutched a half-eaten granola bar, their only food since yesterday morning. His mother was dying in a Phoenix hospital 2,000 miles away, and he had exactly 3 hours and 47 minutes to say goodbye. He saved a billionaire's life in 2 minutes and 53 seconds. Then he vanished. No name, no reward, no trace. What she discovered about him would shatter everything she believed about success, worth, and the invisible people she had walked past her entire privileged life. Vivian Ashford arrived at her office before dawn, as she had every single day for 15 years. The 47th floor of Willis Tower stretched beneath floor-to-ceiling windows, Chicago sprawling like a kingdom she had built with maxed credit cards and sheer refusal to fail. Her Starbucks was black, no room for cream. She didn't have time for complications. The Bloomberg terminal cycled through pre-market futures while her Wall Street Journal lay open, yellow highlighter marking the sections that mattered. 19 days until IPO. Ashford Medical Corporation valued at $4.2 billion. Her phone buzzed. A text from Roland, her younger brother. Board getting restless about Q3 projections. Some members questioning leadership priorities. Lunch tomorrow? We should strategize, sis. She deleted it without responding. Roland had wanted her chair since the day she founded this company. 15 years he had waited for her to stumble. 15 years of watching, calculating, positioning himself for the moment she showed weakness. Dr. Margot Castellano appeared in the doorway. 68 years old, silver-haired, she was the only person on earth who called Vivian by her first name without permission. Viv, you look like death warmed over. When did you last sleep? Eat something that wasn't from a vending machine? Sleep is for people who aren't 19 days from the largest medical technology IPO in NASDAQ history. Margot studied her with clinical concern. Your mother worked herself into an early grave. Heart attack at 51, alone in her office at 2 in the morning. You were 24. Don't make me watch history repeat itself. Vivian said nothing. Her mother had left her one inheritance, the bone-deep terror of poverty and an iron determination to never be weak, never be dependent, never be invisible again. She had built walls so high that no one could see inside them. She had constructed armor so thick that nothing could penetrate it. She didn't know yet that armor could also become a prison. 2,000 miles west, Callum Renfield had been awake for 37 hours. His shoes were held together with duct tape on the inside, where no one could see. The plane ticket in his pocket, $139 on Spirit Airlines. Had consumed 3 months of skipped lunches and creative accounting with the electric bill. Rosie walked beside him through O'Hare's fluorescent corridors. 8 years old, brown hair perpetually escaping its ponytail, she clutched a faded frozen backpack containing everything precious in her world. A one-eyed teddy bear named Mr. Patches that her mother had bought from a hospital gift shop the day before she died. A photograph of that mother in a wedding dress, a woman Rosie had never actually met. Half a Nature Valley granola bar that Callum had saved from his Amazon warehouse break room. Daddy, why do airplane tickets cost so much? Because they carry us to people we love, Rosie girl. She considered this with the gravity that only 8-year-olds possess. Then love must be really expensive. Is that why we don't have very much? The question cut through him like surgical steel. We have plenty of love, sweetheart, just not plenty of money. They're different things. Ms. Hernandez says in America they're the same thing. She says that's why her sister can't afford her medicine. Callum had no answer for that. Some truths were too heavy for airport terminals at 5 in the morning. His phone vibrated. Phoenix General Hospital. Mr. Renfield, this is Dr. Patterson. Your mother's condition has deteriorated significantly overnight. If you want to see her, you should come now. I'm sorry. Lorraine Renfield had raised him alone after his father left with a 23-year-old secretary when Callum was 6. She had worked double shifts at Denny's for 19 years so he could graduate from nursing school without drowning in debt. When Corinne died, when the medical bills reached $847,000, Lorraine had sold her car and moved into a trailer park in Phoenix to help him survive. Now she was dying of pancreatic cancer, and he had 3 hours and 47 minutes to say goodbye. The plane lifted off from Chicago, carrying its cargo of separate lives toward separate destinations. In first class, Vivian reviewed IPO documents on a laptop that cost more than Callum earned in 2 months. In row 37, Rosie fell asleep against her father's shoulder. Mr. Patches clutched to her chest, exhausted from waking at 4 in the morning. 35 minutes into the flight, Vivian reached for her water glass. Her throat tightened. Strange. The shrimp. That catered lunch her assistant had ordered. Her lips began to tingle. Her chest constricted. Steel bands wrapping around her ribs. She tried to breathe and couldn't. The cabin erupted into chaos. Someone screamed. Flight attendants rushed over, faces pale with panic. The man in 3C pulled out his iPhone and started filming. No one moved to help. Vivian's vision grayed at the edges. She was dying at 30,000 feet, surrounded by strangers, alone despite the crowd. All that money, all that power, all those years of building an empire, utterly useless in the face of a simple allergic reaction. Then hands touched her face. Gentle hands. Rough hands. Calloused hands that moved with practiced precision. Someone tilted her head back. Fingers finding her carotid pulse with the certainty of long experience. "Ma'am, I'm a nurse. Stay with me. You're going to be okay." Through the gray fog, a face materialized. Not polished, not expensive. Just a man. Exhausted, worried, kind. Brown eyes holding hers like anchors in a storm. Behind him, a small face. A little girl with tangled brown hair and a one-eyed teddy bear, watching with solemn terror. "Daddy, is the lady going to die?" "No, baby. She's going to be just fine." He said it like a promise, like he had any power over death. And somehow, impossibly, Vivian believed him. Callum's hands remembered everything. 8 years away from nursing, 8 years of scrubbing toilets and loading boxes. But muscle memory doesn't forget. Airway clear, pulse weak and thready, lips cyanotic. Classic anaphylaxis, severe and progressing fast. "She's in anaphylactic shock. I need the emergency medical kit now. Does anyone have an EpiPen?" The flight attendant scrambled. Callum assessed, calculated, prepared. The kit arrived. He grabbed the EpiPen, checked the dosage, positioned it against her lateral thigh. 1, 2, 3. Hold for 10 seconds. "Breathe with me, in and out, slow and steady. You're doing great." Color returned to her face. The steel bands loosened. She gasped, coughed, breathed. Applause erupted throughout the cabin. The flight attendant touched his shoulder. "Sir, you saved her life. Can we get your name for our records? The airline will want to recognize." Callum checked his watch. His face drained of color. "Monitor her closely. Second dose in 15 to 20 minutes if symptoms return. Have paramedics waiting at the gate." He stood, took Rosie's hand. "Sir, your name—" But he was already moving, back down the aisle, back to row 37, back to invisibility. Vivian struggled to lift her head. She caught a glimpse through the chaos. Faded jacket, worn shoes, a child's small hand clasped in a larger, rougher one. Then nothing. He dissolved into the crowd of passengers like he had never existed at all. Callum made it to Phoenix with 11 minutes to spare. Lorraine's eyes opened one last time when she heard his voice. She reached for his hand, the same rough hand that had just pulled a stranger back from death, and her lips moved with the last of her strength. "Don't be afraid to live again, Callum. Promise me." "Mom, you've been hiding for 8 years. Corinne wouldn't want that. Rosie needs you whole, not just surviving. Find something. Find someone. Let yourself be seen." "I promise, Mom." She smiled, closed her eyes, and slipped away. 2,000 miles east, Vivian Ashford lay in a private hospital suite at Northwestern Memorial, machines beeping confirmation of her survival, haunted by a question she couldn't answer. Who saves a stranger's life and asks for absolutely nothing in return? The investigation began the next morning. Vivian hired Declan Thorne, former FBI Chicago field office, $500 an hour. She didn't care about the cost. She needed to understand. "Your mystery man is a ghost," Thorne reported 2 weeks later. 847 passengers on that flight. Dozens of men traveling with children. But this guy, it's like he's practiced being invisible. Security cameras never catch his face clearly. Practiced? Some people learn not to be seen. Usually means they've spent a long time being overlooked. The breakthrough came from cross-referencing emergency room admissions within 500 miles of Phoenix. Terminal cancer patient Lorraine Renfield, 67, died the same day as the flight. Next of kin listed, Callum James Renfield, son. Thorne slid the complete dossier across his mahogany desk. Callum James Renfield, 38 years old, former registered nurse, license still active but unemployed in healthcare since 2016. Bachelor of Science in Nursing from Rush University, student debt paid off through bankruptcy settlement. Current employment, night custodian at Willis Tower, $12.75 an hour, no benefits. Warehouse associate at Amazon, $16.50 an hour, classified as seasonal for 14 months. Weekend handyman, cash basis, whatever he could find on Craigslist. Previous employment, Northwestern Memorial Hospital ICU, 2009 to 2016. Exemplary performance reviews all 7 years. Resigned citing personal reasons. Spouse, Corinne Bellamy, Renfield, deceased December 2016. Cause of death, postpartum hemorrhage, complications during childbirth. Medical debt incurred, $847,312. Daughter, Rosie Mae Renfield, age 8. Free lunch program at Shields Elementary, income qualified. Current bank balance, $247.18. Eviction notice filed October 15th. Vivian stared at the file. $247. The man who saved her $3 billion life had $247 to his name. "There's more," Thorne said quietly. His mother's funeral was 6 days ago. Small service, almost no one there. He looked broken, Ms. Ashford, like a man who'd stopped fighting. She found him in the parking lot of Phoenix General Hospital 8 days after his mother's death. He stood beside an ancient Honda Civic, 251,000 miles on the odometer, staring at it like he'd forgotten how to open the door. 73 hours without sleep had hollowed him out, left him operating on nothing but habit and the desperate need to keep moving. He heard her footsteps, turned. Everything about her screamed money. The Hermes scarf, the Louboutin heels clicking on asphalt, designer sunglasses probably worth more than his car. He almost didn't recognize her. Then he did. "I've been looking for you." His laugh scraped out of him, hollow and bitter. "You shouldn't have. You saved my life. Anyone would have done the same. But they didn't." She stepped closer. 53 people watched me die. One man filmed it for TikTok. You were the only one who moved. Silence stretched between them. Arizona wind carried red dust across the parking lot. I had somewhere to be, he said finally. My mother was dying. Past tense. She heard it. I know, I'm sorry. I found the funeral notice. I should have come. He shook his head. Don't want thanks. Don't want sympathy. Don't want anything. Just want to get through today. Tomorrow. That's it. She noticed the eviction paper in his jacket pocket. Let me help you. His face hardened. I don't need charity. This isn't. Then what is it? His voice rose, something breaking. Guilt money? You feel bad that the guy who saved your billion-dollar life can't make rent? That my daughter qualifies for free lunch because I work 3 jobs and still can't break poverty level? He stepped closer, 8 years of suppressed rage finally finding an outlet. I was a nurse, Miss Ashford. A good one. 8 years in the ICU. Saved hundreds of lives. And my wife bled out on a delivery table because some insurance algorithm needed 47 minutes to authorize a procedure that should have happened immediately. His voice cracked. The system you're part of, the system that made you a billionaire, it killed my wife, bankrupted my family, took my career, and now it's taking the only home my daughter has ever known. Vivian said nothing for a long moment. Then she did something she had never done in 42 years of clawing her way to the top. She lowered herself onto the hot concrete curb, her $2,200 dress collecting Arizona dust. You're right, he stared at her. You're right about everything. I run a medical technology company. We build diagnostic systems, imaging tools, things that help hospitals work faster. But the system that uses those tools. She looked up at him, and for the first time he saw something crack in her armor. It's broken. It's been broken my whole career. And I've done nothing because fixing it doesn't show up on quarterly earnings. She pulled off her sunglasses. Her eyes were red, rimmed with exhaustion and something that looked almost like shame. I almost died on that plane, and the only person who helped me was someone the system had completely failed. Someone invisible to everyone in first class. Callum sat down beside her. Not close, but not far. What do you want from me? My foundation runs a healthcare reentry program, scholarships for nurses who left the field, housing assistance, childcare support, full tuition, job placement. In exchange, 3 years working in underserved communities. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to apply. Because your license is still active. Because you saved my life with skills you haven't used in 8 years, and that means something. She paused. Because I need to believe that what I've built actually matters. Callum was quiet for a long time. Then he said, my mother's last words. She made me promise not to be afraid. Afraid of what? He looked at this woman from a world he had never touched, sitting in the dirt with him like it was the most natural thing in the world. Living, she said, I've been hiding for 8 years. Said Corinne wouldn't want that. Said Rosie needs me whole, not just surviving. Was she right? She was always right, even when I didn't want her to be. He picked up a pebble, turned it over in his calloused fingers. This program, it's work, not charity. Every penny earned, every certification passed, every patient served. You prove yourself or you're out. And Rosie, foundation housing in a safe neighborhood, after-school program covered, health care for both of you. Real health care. He thought about the eviction sheriff arriving in 39 hours, about Mrs. Delgado's cramped apartment, about Lorraine's voice. Don't be afraid. He extended his hand. Okay. Vivian took it. The connection was electric, unexpected, terrifying for both of them. Okay. Roland Ashford learned about his sister's new project within the week. He sat in his corner office, Brioni suit perfectly pressed, reviewing the reports his private investigator had compiled. The former janitor, the scholarship. Vivian's car parked outside a Southside apartment building at 11:43 at night. Perfect. At the next board meeting, he planted the first seeds of doubt. My sister's recent behavior concerns me. Significant foundation resources diverted to locate a single economy passenger. Now she's sponsoring a custodian who abandoned his medical career 8 years ago? Margot Castellano shut him down. Vivian's judgment built this company from nothing. Roland smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Loyalty is admirable, Margot, but loyalty and fiduciary responsibility aren't always aligned. He could wait. He had been waiting 15 years. A few more months meant nothing. When Vivian's charity case imploded, he would be ready. The transformation began slowly. Callum attended classes during the day, pharmacology and advanced cardiac life support and trauma protocols. He studied until 2 in the morning, coffee cups accumulating like monuments to exhaustion, textbooks bristling with sticky notes in 3 different colors. The foundation apartment was small but clean. A tree-lined street in Humboldt Park where neighbors actually waved. Rosie had her own room for the first time since the bankruptcy. She covered the walls with butterfly stickers and placed Mr. Patches and her mother's photograph on the nightstand. That first night, Callum stood in her doorway, watching her sleep in a real bed instead of a mattress on the floor, and cried until he had nothing left. His hands remembered everything. The first time back in scrubs, the fabric felt foreign and familiar simultaneously. The first time holding a stethoscope, hearing a heartbeat through those earpieces without immediately seeing Corinne's face. Vivian appeared occasionally. Professional distance maintained, but she brought him coffee when he studied late. She helped Rosie with homework when Callum had clinical rotations. Neither of them talked about what was growing between them. Neither of them was ready. 4 months into the program, Vivian found him in the foundation cafeteria at 3:17 in the morning. He sat alone, head in his hands, pharmacology textbook open to a chapter he had read 9 times. Final exam in 6 hours. Can't sleep either. He looked up. She was in jeans and a Yale sweatshirt, no makeup, no armor. More human than he had ever seen her. Can't remember the difference between metoprolol and carvedilol. 8 years is a long time to be away. She sat across from him. Tell me about her. About who? Your wife, Corinne. Tell me about her. He was quiet for so long that she thought she had overstepped. Then the words came. 8 years of silence finally breaking. She taught kindergarten, special education, kids with learning differences, behavioral challenges, kids nobody else had patience for. She'd come home covered in finger paint and glitter, smelling like Play-Doh, telling me about some 5-year-old who said his first full sentence or tied his shoes without help. His voice caught. She got pregnant with Rosie. Easy pregnancy, no complications. Then the delivery, everything went wrong at once. Placental abruption, massive hemorrhage. I was there. I was a nurse. I knew exactly what was happening. He stared at the table. But I wasn't her doctor. I was her husband. I had to stand there and watch while they waited for authorization. Vivian reached across the table and covered his hand with hers. The authorization felt like it took forever. Every second, I watched her slip further away, knowing exactly what was happening. Powerless to stop it. By the time they finally approved the surgery, it was too late. She looked at me, blood everywhere, monitors screaming, and whispered, "Take care of our Rosie, Cal. Promise me." Then her hand went limp in mine, and she was gone. That's why you left nursing. Every patient became her. Every code blue. I heard those monitors. I couldn't function, so I ran. Took jobs where I couldn't fail anyone, where nobody depended on me to keep them alive. But you saved me. He met her eyes. You weren't a patient. You were just a person who needed help. My body moved before my brain could stop it. Maybe that's who you really are, she said softly. Someone who moves when everyone else freezes. Rosie understood things that adults often missed. She found Vivian alone on the foundation playground one afternoon, swinging half-heartedly on equipment designed for children a quarter her age. "Do you know how to swing? Daddy says grown-ups forget." Vivian tried to remember the last time she had sat on a swing, 35 years at least. Rosie demonstrated the proper technique. Vivian attempted it, nearly fell off. Rosie laughed, a sound like wind chimes. Then she got serious. "Ms. Vivian, can I ask you something important?" "Anything." "Do you like my daddy? Like, like, like him?" Vivian's heart stopped. "Because he talks about you. A lot. He says you're brave and smart and you see people that other people don't see. He said you saw him when everyone else looked right through him, like he was a window instead of a person." "Your daddy said that?" Rosie nodded. "I think you'd be a good girlfriend for him, but only if you're not going to leave. Because Mommy left and Grandma Lorraine left, and I don't want Daddy to be sad again." Vivian knelt to the little girl's level. "Rosie, I would never hurt your daddy on purpose. Not ever." Rosie's eyes, so much like the photographs of Corinne, searched her face with unnerving intensity. "That's what Mommy said too, but she still left." "Your mommy didn't choose to leave, sweetheart. She wanted to stay more than anything in the world." "How do you know?" "Because any mother who had you would never want to go." Rosie considered this. Then she wrapped her arms around Vivian's neck. "Okay, I believe you, but if you make Daddy cry, I'll be really, really mad." Something unlocked in Vivian's chest, something she hadn't even known was closed. "Deal." Roland chose the annual Foundation Gala to strike. 500 guests filled the grand ballroom of the Four Seasons Chicago. Donors, board members, politicians, press. Vivian wore a navy Valentino gown. Callum wore his first suit since Corinne's funeral, tailored by someone whose services Vivian had arranged without telling him the cost. Rosie stayed home with Mrs. Delgado. "Too many fancy people," Callum had said. Really, he wanted to protect her from this world. Roland took the stage mid-event, his voice carrying through the ballroom with practiced concern. "Before we continue, I have some concerns about Foundation operations that must be addressed publicly." The screen behind him illuminated. Photographs of Callum and Vivian. Coffee together at the Foundation cafeteria. Walking toward his apartment building. Her car parked outside at 11:43 at night. "A former custodian," Roland said. "A man who abandoned his nursing career for 8 years. Fast-tracked through our program while more qualified candidates wait. Given housing, tuition, childcare, benefits worth over $175,000, while my sister personally supervises his progress." Gas rippled through the crowd. Phones rose like flowers turning toward the sun. "I'm not suggesting anything improper. I'm simply asking, is this appropriate use of donor funds? Or has our CEO confused philanthropy with personal interest?" Callum felt 500 pairs of eyes turn toward him. Wealthy, polished, judging. Everything he had feared. That he didn't belong. That he was a charity case. That he would never be anything more than an invisible man from the cheap seats. Confirmed before an audience of people who had never worked 3 jobs in their lives. He stood, walked toward the exit. Not running. He was too proud for that. But every step cost him everything. "Callum," he didn't stop. He sat in darkness in his apartment, wedding ring heavy on the chain around his neck. He had been right all along. He didn't belong in her world. Never had. Never would. The door creaked open. Small footsteps. "Daddy? Mrs. Delgado said you came home early. Why are you sitting in the dark?" "Just thinking, Rosie girl. Go back to bed." She sat next to him on the couch instead. "You're sad." "I can tell. Is it because of the mean man at the fancy party?" "What mean man?" "Ms. Vivian called. She said a mean man said bad things about you in front of everyone. She said he's a liar and she's going to fix it. She called? Rosie nodded. She said to tell you something. She said, the invisible man was never invisible to me. Tell him I see him. Tell him I've always seen him. And tell him I'm not going anywhere. Something cracked in Callum's chest. Something that had been frozen for 8 years. Rosie curled against his side. I see you too, Daddy. You're the best daddy, even when you're sad. The emergency board meeting convened at 9 the next morning. Roland sat at the head of the table, smug with anticipated victory. Board members shifted uncomfortably. Margot Castellano radiated fury. Vivian entered, calm, composed, dangerous. The board has serious concerns, Roland began. The board has concerns, Roland. She cut him off. Or you have concerns. She placed a thick folder on the conference table. Since we're being transparent, let me share some findings. 3 years of forensic accounting, shell corporations in the Cayman Islands, wire transfers to accounts registered in your name alone, $4.7 million embezzled from both the corporation and the foundation since 2021. Roland's face drained of color. The SEC has been investigating for 18 months. I've been cooperating quietly, building the case, waiting to see how far you go. Now I know. She turned to the board. My brother has been stealing from this company for 3 years. When embezzlement wasn't enough to force me out, he manufactured a scandal. He weaponized a good man's poverty in my attempt to help him. She looked directly at Roland. Callum Renfield's scholarship is documented, transparent, and awarded through standard foundation processes. His test scores are in the 97th percentile of all program participants. He has saved 3 patients' lives during clinical rotations. Security entered. 2 agents in dark suits. But your embezzlement, that's documented too. Bank records, wire transfers, offshore accounts. The FBI has everything. Vivian, goodbye, Roland. He was escorted out. The room fell silent. Vivian addressed the remaining board members. If anyone else has concerns about my judgment, speak now. Because here's what I know. 8 months ago, I almost died on a plane. A man who works 3 jobs and can't afford health insurance saved my life. He asked for nothing, expected nothing, disappeared before anyone could thank him. She paused. That man taught me something I'd forgotten, building this company. He taught me that worth isn't measured in stock prices or quarterly earnings. It's measured in what you do when no one's watching, in whether you help someone who has nothing to offer you. If this board believes that supporting people like him is inappropriate use of foundation resources, then you can have my resignation, because I'd rather lose this chair than lose the first person who ever saw me as something other than a balance sheet. Margot smiled. I move we table all discussion of the CEO's personal relationships and refocus on the criminal referral for Roland Ashford. Do I have a second? The vote was unanimous. Callum was waiting in the foundation lobby when Vivian emerged from the elevator 3 hours later. She looked exhausted, triumphant, terrified. Roland's been arrested, she said. The board voted unanimously to support. He crossed the distance between them in 3 steps and pulled her into his arms. She stiffened for a moment, decades of armor resisting the unfamiliar sensation of being held. Then she softened against him, her face pressed into his shoulder, her body shaking with sobs she had been holding back for hours. I thought I lost you, she whispered. When you walked out of that ballroom, I thought you were gone forever. I almost was. His voice was rough. Rosie talked me off the ledge. She delivered your message. Vivian pulled back, wiping her eyes. I meant every word. I know. He touched her face gently, pushing a strand of hair behind her ear. The invisible man sees you too, Vivian. He's always seen you. She laughed through her tears. We're quite a pair, aren't we? A billionaire who doesn't know how to be loved, and a nurse who forgot he deserved to be. Maybe we can figure it out together. Maybe we can. They stood there in the empty lobby, two broken people holding each other up, finally ready to stop running from the thing they both wanted most. 1 year after Flight 1847, Callum stood in new scrubs, ID badge reading Callum Renfield, RN clipped to his chest. First day as a certified nurse in 8 years. Vivian found him before his shift. Nervous? Terrified? Good. Means you care. Rosie burst through the door, backpack bouncing. Daddy, Miss Vivian, look what I made. She held up a drawing, three stick figures holding hands, a tall one with brown hair, a medium one with black hair and a red dress, a small one with yellow pigtails and a one-eyed teddy bear. It's us. Ms. Hernandez said draw your family, so I drew our family. Vivian studied the drawing more closely. The tall figure had something in his hand, a stethoscope, rendered in purple crayon. The medium figure wore a tiny crown. The small figure stood between them, arms stretched impossibly wide to hold both their hands. Why does she have a crown? Vivian asked softly. Because Daddy says you're the queen of your castle. But I think queens get lonely in their castles all by themselves. So I drew you with us instead. Queens need families too. Vivian's breath caught in her throat. And see this? Rosie pointed to the corner of the page where two smaller figures floated among clouds and yellow crayon stars. That's Mommy and Grandma Lorraine. They're watching us from heaven. Ms. Hernandez says people we love never really leave. They just watch from somewhere we can't see. Callum's eyes filled with tears. They're smiling because we're happy, Rosie continued matter-of-factly. Mommy wants Daddy to be happy. She told him so, and Grandma Lorraine told him not to be scared. So this drawing is me showing them that he listened. She looked up at both adults with the devastating clarity that only children possess. Because you make Daddy happy, Miss Vivian, and you make me feel safe. And families are the people who make you happy and safe, right? Callum and Vivian looked at each other. Rosie's face clouded with sudden worry. Is that okay? To have a new family? Mommy's in heaven and Grandma Lorraine too. But we can still love them and have a new family. Right, Daddy? Callum knelt and pulled her into his arms. Yes, baby. We can love Mommy and Grandma forever and still have room for more. Love isn't like money. It doesn't run out when you share it. He looked at Vivian over Rosie's head. They'd want this. They'd want us to live. Vivian joined the embrace. Three people, arms intertwined, building something new from broken pieces and secondhand hope. That night, after Rosie fell asleep, Callum sat alone with Corinne's ring. 8 years he had worn it against his chest. 8 years of carrying her with him everywhere, a weight that was both comfort and chain. He held it in his palm, whispered to the darkness. Corinne, I think I'm ready. I hope you understand. I'll always love you. You gave me Rosie. You gave me everything good in my life for so long. He wiped his eyes. But Mom was right. I've been hiding. And there's someone. She's different. She sees me. Really sees me. Not the janitor. Not the failed husband who couldn't save you. Just me. He placed the ring in a small wooden box on his dresser. Not throwing away. Not forgetting. Just making space. I'm not replacing you. I'm just making room. Like you told me to that last night. You said, don't let me be the end of your story, Cal. I didn't understand then. He closed the box gently. I understand now. 15 months after a man in duct-tape shoes saved a stranger's life at 30,000 feet, Callum and Vivian boarded another flight together. First class this time. A medical conference in Boston. Vivian had insisted. Callum had protested. Rosie had declared, let her spoil us, Daddy. That's what families do. Mid-flight, an elderly man in row 3 clutched his chest. Callum was out of his seat before the call for medical assistance finished. Vivian was right behind him, already pulling supplies from the overhead medical kit. They worked together, seamless, synchronized. A team forged by crisis and trust in something neither of them had expected to find. Pulse check, aspirin administration, vitals monitoring, calm voices cutting through panic. Passengers stabilized, paramedics waiting at Logan. A young mother who had watched the whole thing approached them afterward, her eyes wide with admiration. "How do you two do that? You work like you've been partners forever." Callum smiled. "Someone believed I was worth saving. She taught me to believe it too." Vivian took his hand. "And he taught me what worth really means. That it has nothing to do with money and everything to do with who you become when no one's watching." Logan Airport Terminal. Rosie running ahead to find the bathroom. Callum and Vivian walking together, hands almost touching. She stopped. "Your mother made you promise not to be afraid. Are you still afraid?" He took her hand, the same calloused hand that had saved her life at 30,000 feet. The same hand that had held his dying wife, his dying mother, his daughter through nightmares about monsters and more realistic fears about eviction notices. "Not anymore." "Good." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Because I'm terrified. And I need you to be brave enough for both of us." "What scares you?" "Losing this. Losing you. Losing Rosie. Finding out I don't deserve happiness after spending 42 years not even knowing what it was." He pulled her closer. "You deserve everything. You saw me when I was invisible. You gave me back my life. You gave Rosie a family. How could you not deserve to be part of what you created?" Rosie reappeared, Mr. Patches tucked under one arm. "Are you guys going to kiss? Because Sophie says when grown-ups hold hands and look at each other like that, they're supposed to kiss." They laughed. The sound of it surprised them both. "Maybe later," Callum said. "Fine, but can we get dinner first? Like a real family? Because that's what we are now, right? A real family?" Callum looked at Vivian. Everything terrifying. Everything perfect. Everything he had stopped believing was possible 8 years ago when he held Corinne's hand and felt her slip away. "Yeah, Rosie girl." Vivian's voice was thick with emotion. "That's exactly what we are." They walked toward baggage claim together, Rosie in the middle, holding both their hands, swinging slightly with each step. His mother had told him not to be afraid to live. For 8 years, he thought living meant surviving, getting through each day, keeping Rosie fed, keeping the lights on, keeping his head above water just enough to breathe. But that wasn't living. That was existing. Living was letting yourself be seen when you'd spent years practicing invisibility. It was accepting help when pride screamed to refuse. It was believing you deserved good things when the world had spent 8 years teaching you otherwise. Living was looking at a second chance, a terrifying, impossible, beautiful second chance, and saying yes. He had said yes in a parking lot in Phoenix. He had said yes every day since. He would keep saying yes for the rest of his life. Yes to Rosie. Yes to Vivian. Yes to the family they were building from broken pieces and borrowed hope and love that didn't run out when you shared it. The invisible man had finally let himself be seen, and it turned out that being seen by the right person was everything.